if it's possible that you can give a little introduction, if you would like to this.
Well, yeah, of course. Well, what I talk about, or what this message points to, it's not personal, so it's not really coming from an experience, which we may talk about later what that means.
Yeah.
What we talk about is that everything is whole and complete, and that what happens, or what seems to be happening, is just naturally everything, and that there is nothing deeper to attain or to be found or to be achieved. It's just undivided. Nothing is separate from each other, and it's just undivided and perfect and whole and complete, but in a very ordinary sense. It's not, it has nothing to do with this special wholeness that the person is looking for. And talking about the person, that's the other thing that this points to, that there is no person, that this experience to be a separate something, to be a separate entity, whatever this entity is, an energy or a presence or a soul or whatever, that this entity does not exist. And it doesn't even exist as an illusion, so to speak. So
of course not.
Those are the two things that we talk about, that somehow they belong together. They are automatic. So when there's no person, everything is whole and complete. And when everything is whole and complete and undivided, there can't be a person. So that's basically what we talk about. Though I have to say, this may have sounded a bit logic. It has, what we talk about also hasn't anything to do with logic or knowing.
No.
What we talk about, this message, can't be known really or experienced.
Yeah, so it doesn't make sense.
It doesn't make sense. Yes,
that's a relief.
Yeah,
yeah. But in a way, of course, there is no way. But words sometimes are difficult. One could say it can also be when you first come across this. What we call a message, of course, there isn't a real message.
Yeah.
It's also just what seems to happen in a way. But it can be very confronting when there is the feeling of being someone. It can be, there's a memory of it here when there was still a search going on. And I've talked about it yesterday at a talk with Agnes, a lady from Romania, and she asked about this. And one of the first speakers I came across was Tony Parsons, and after that it was you or Jim or something. That was what was happening here, and that was there was a lot of frustration at that time, and it was very confronting in a way, because almost everything, or just everything you believe in, it's tearing that apart, so to speak. So
yes, I mean, yes, it is confronting on the one hand, but of course not in order to be confronting.
No.
It's actually the person, so to speak, that comes with its experience, meeting this message in that sense, and it's just thrown back onto itself. I think that this can feel like confronting, like all the beliefs, all the thoughts, all the methods never really worked, but in the light of this message, this somehow becomes obvious.
Yeah.
and not really, as I said, on an intellectual or a mental level. It's also energetic. It threatens this sense of being someone. But yeah, it can be totally confronting, of course.
There's still a memory when you were still seeking before the illusion did apparently dropped away, or is that gone also?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean, everyone is a seeker. So before the illusion drops, everyone was seeking. I was, but maybe you mean spiritually, and I was also spiritually seeking. So,
all right.
Yeah.
Was it? How was it for you? You came across Tony for the first?
Yes, actually, when I met Tony, I think in my world he was the only one talking about it. There wasn't
back then. Yeah,
there wasn't something like a non-dual scene, or I understood years later that there is something like a non-dual scene. So I hardly also did know the famous Advaita people. Of course, I'd had heard of Ramana and stuff, but there were others in the last century and I hadn't heard of them. So for me, there was just Tony. There wasn't anyone else really talking. Yes, and actually for me, the spiritual search more or less collapsed a few months before I met Tony.
Okay.
And for me, it was confronting really, but only one night. Really, well, okay. I was really fighting against the message, so to speak. And after this one night, there was no fighting against the message. Of course, in the end, I, as a seeker, again was constantly confronted by life, in daily life and with my personal issues and stuff. But the message, so to speak, that was, I mean, you can't separate it in the end, but that went in easily, so to speak.
Okay. Yeah. So it was a quick death.
Well, it still took a while, but yeah.
Nice.
I had my struggles in the spiritual world already. So
yeah, that was more. Yeah, there's so much in that spiritual realm. There's so much to do. Becoming worthy and practices and stuff. And yeah.
That's true, but when I said I think I was, I mean, it's in my story. I think I was just very confronted in the spiritual world already with the inability to make it.
Okay.
So that's what I mean. There was a lot of confrontation. I mean, you can't really separate this message from life itself.
Of course.
So for me, life was already confronting, so my brain was...
So, and at the end, you didn't make it.
Exactly. So when I met this message, very quickly, there was a relaxation in the system.
Yeah, it's weird in a way. Of course, that's also what's happening. Sometimes it's still a wonder. For me, it seems to be that way. Sometimes thinking about it still happens, and it's so ordinary, but in a way it's still, because it cannot be grasped, of course. It cannot be understood, because if someone understood what's being shared here, they're still feeling like a person, just with an understanding of what this is, so to speak. Yeah. Lovely. So, and now after that, Andreas, you started to talk about it.
Absolutely, yeah.
Which
was actually the most surprising thing to do, and I wasn't very keen to do it. I mean, it felt right, and but I wasn't keen to do it. I thought, well, there was nothing to say anymore. So the weirdest thing was actually to start talking. I could, really, I was. It felt so absurd, and it still is absurd, to be honest. But I can't really stop it from happening.
Yeah, that's.
There is no one there.
It's unexplainable. It's like there is that passion that arises to can't.
Yeah, I don't.
It's hard to explain.
I don't. For me, the funny thing is, I don't really have a passion of talking about it, I'd say, or the passion. Let's put it like this: the passion comes when there is a question, but I'm never sitting there. I don't even know what I talk about, and I'm never sitting there with something I want to talk about this. Never. That doesn't happen. It's not an issue here, but when a question comes, when there is a question about this, then the passion starts. That's how it's here.
Yeah.
So I hardly look forward to a talk in terms of, oh, finally I can talk about non-duality anymore. It doesn't exist. This whole issue has been blown up, really.
Yeah.
But the moment there is a question about this, then that's when the passion starts and the joy.
Yeah. And it's unexplainable. For me, it's hard to explain.
Yes, it's a surprise. Yeah, one could say so. Yeah.
Life is full of surprises.
I mean, it's just that there is no knowledge stored here, or as I said, the whole idea that there is something like non-duality has been blown apart, and so there isn't anything that I've stored or that wants to be spoken. It doesn't even want to be spoken, really.